Hey, Travis, with Michael Furlan back out there with the second group today, just first of all, I'm sure you're encouraged to have him back out there. And do you have any sort of timeline as to when he might rejoin the main group?
Don't have a timeline, but it is a good sign that he's out there and closer to joining the bigger team.
And I know you're not allowed to talk about details with these sorts of things, but is there an official designation that the club has for Brandon Sutter with him not on the ice today?
Unfit to play.
And last one for me, just, with all this time to prepare for the series against the Wild, it's really unprecedented in terms of, you talked about it yesterday, the amount of video you guys have been able to watch. How do you balance bringing your players up to speed with all of that work that you've done without, inundating them with too much information about your opponent?
Yeah, it's a fine line. I think we're concentrating right now of getting our team up to speed. Getting our structure in place again. We haven't talked a whole lot about Minnesota. Every once in a while, we'll throw in a comment about a certain drill or something like that that we might let them be aware of. But like you said, there is a lot of time on that. Normally, you do a prep in 2 or 3 days in between series, and we've got a lot of time. So right now, we're still concentrating on our team game.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Next up, Ben Kuzma.
Hey, Travis, now that it's official, I'm just curious if you wanted to add anything more to Quinn Hughes being a Calder Trophy finalist. Certainly, I know you spoke about the person and the player. Just wondering if there's anything else you'd want to let us know about this kid.
You guys talk about him a lot, and rightfully, deservingly so. Great kid, humble, well-deserving of being one of the finalists, and hope he wins.
Quick follow-up for me. We're going to have Tyler Myers on here in a bit. You had him back with Edler. I know you started with that pairing. What do you like about it?
They're both good players, big guys, long reach. I thought Mizey had a good season. But that's also fluid. I know Stetch played well there as well, and we'll see where it goes.
How much do you admire Myers being such a student of the game? I remember talking to you, Travis, about even here's a guy who's got a certain pedigree in the game and could say, you know what, I'm going to do things my way. He seems to be have a thirst for knowledge, soak up things like a sponge and try to bring them to practice the next day. What does that mean to a coach to have a veteran who has that kind of outlook on the game?
Yeah, he wants to get better.
Yeah.
I think that's a good characteristic to have as a player as you get older in the league, understanding that there's still areas that you need to improve in. The game is constantly changing, especially how you defend nowadays. And he wants to be a student of the game. He looks for video clips from us, individual clips, and isn't afraid to take advice or criticism on certain things if it's going to make him better as well.
Just a quick follow on that too. It's another Calder Trophy winner that you have on your roster, and I would imagine sometimes when a guy wins that kind of an award, maybe some individuals that could go to their head or think they've got it made in the game. But just getting back to my earlier point, it's been a slow and methodical and just steady ascension for him in his pro career. And I guess, again, getting back to my point about just having a level of admiration for that.
Yeah, you're talking about Mizey still. Yeah. I mean, he's a great pro. He's a good example for all our younger guys. He's always doing the right things as far as making sure that he's ready, his body's ready, takes extra time to warm up. Even afterwards, when you see him in the gym, he's very businesslike when it comes to making sure that he's on top of his game and on top of his body.
Thanks, Travis.
Yep, thanks.
Jeff Patterson.
Travis, I noticed that Mike DiPietro is not on the ice, that Domingue's the only goalie with the second group. Is that by design to have just one goalie, or is there an update on DiPietro?
No update, no. I wasn't aware of it.
Okay. Who decides the punishment for the losing groups in the scrimmage? You talked yesterday about trying to have fun and keep things different from day to day, and we saw you skate them after the scrimmage yesterday, and today obviously they were doing some different things. Like, who comes up with punishments for for the losses?
We do in the coach's office. I thought today that, we've had 3 hard days of skating, decided to change it up a little bit and do a little bit of push-up, sit-up combo. Thought Manny would be a perfect guy to run that. He seems to look like he does it 24/7.
Also, you said yesterday you thought maybe there were some signs that the first day kind of had taken its toll on the group in day 2. What did you think of 3 days in now, just the overall pace, the fitness levels, what you're seeing out there on the ice?
I thought today might have been our best practice. I was really happy. I was a little worried about today. It's a little bit of a hump day, I find. Day 3 is always, it's a hard day physically, even mentally a little bit. And I thought the group really pushed today and got some good work in. So I was happy with today's practice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Farhan Lalji.
Hi, Travis. I know you can't give us any details on Brandon's injury, but any sense of a timeline as to how long till you get him back on the ice?
No.
And with Quinn Hughes, just maybe a little more on maybe the transformational impact he's had defensively with this group, just his ability to exit the puck. How important has he been to your group?
Yeah, he's been important. He's he's a hell of a player. Anytime you add a guy that's a Calder finalist, you're adding a big piece to your group. There's so many things he does well as far as breakouts, offensively in the offensive zone, head manning the puck quick. And the best part about him probably isn't even his on ice stuff. It's how he is off the ice and how humble he is. It's very endearing to your teammates and your coaching staff, the whole organization. And I think that's important when it comes to young players in the league, young stars in the league.
Thanks.
Next up, we have Ian Mcintyre.
Hey, Travis. I know there's so much about Quinn that's impressive in how he plays, but is there an aspect to him, either as a player or as a person, that has surprised you the most from what you see now compared to before he played those first few games for you last year?
Well, you always hear about a player, and until you actually see him, you're I think as a coach, you try not to, how do I phrase it the right way? I talk about not putting expectations on players in a market like this, but even as a coach, you try not to put too much into the hype so you're not disappointed, I guess, and just let it play itself out. But, he's been a surprise right from day one, especially when you look at him. Sometimes he looks like you think it's your paper boy walking down the hall. And, he's just a real good hockey player that, we're lucky to have. We've been fortunate in the last, 3 years to have 3 rookies come in that have been big parts of our group, and that doesn't always happen. And it's been a good job by Jim by drafting these players.
You touched on how Quinn handles himself, how humble he is. There seems to be some common traits between he and Petey and probably Brock as well, in just kind of this way they approach their profession, and it seems like they're very comfortable where they're going. Is there something, a vibe from those guys that you see as a coach that is different than some other players?
Yeah, I think so. They're all fairly confident players, but yet they're all a little bit different as well. I think in general, their demeanor is, I don't want to use the word casual, but calmness to them. Which I think a lot of good players have. And that also brings the confidence inside of them as well. And players that are skilled players, I find they need to have that in them. So when they make a mistake, it doesn't rattle them too much, because they are going to make mistakes as young players, because they have the puck more than other guys on your team probably. And also that it stops them from getting too far ahead of themselves when things are going really, really well. And it's a nice characteristic to have.
Lastly, I know still a very small sample, but it's been 3 days, and this kind of gets back to the discussion about experience versus youth. But in these 3 days, are you able to generally say, that the young guys look like they've got their legs under them faster? Has it been easier for them, do you think? And not just those 3 that I mentioned, but just the young guys generally. Is it easier for them to come out of this big layoff and get their feet moving than it is for the older players? Or would you not go along with that?
I think it's hard to say. It's probably more on the individual. I think, I think the young player in today's game tends to be a little bit freer in his mind and not worry about things as much. When it comes to even morning skates and stuff like that, older players are very set in their ways. I think the young guys just go out and skate and don't overthink it, where the older guys are a little more conscious of where their body's at and little aches, what it could mean. But they're also pros that have been in the league a while that understand that that's okay and that's part of it. And working through those aches help them to prepare down the road when you're getting ready to play games with a lot more physicality in them as well.
Thanks, Travis.
Yeah, thanks.
Move on to Thomas Strantz.
Travis, Michael Furland with Group 2 today, so neither unfit to play nor unable to practice. Would you expect him to be with Group 1 in the near future here?
I think so, yeah.
And when you think about what the last few months have been like for you and the time you were able to spend with your family, to then go into this sort of quarantine bubble situation with sort of the, restrictions on your movement increasing up until the first 5 days in phase 4, what's that going to be like as you sort of go through being away from, your loved ones for an extended stretch here?
Well, it's going to be different for guys for sure. I think the whole league is preparing for that. So I think that also probably helps in a way that everyone is going through the exact same thing. It's not just one in particular person doing it. You're doing it as a group. When it comes to doing quarantines and stuff like that, being able to be with your teammates is important, and that'll make it a lot easier.
I just want to ask you really quickly, because Elias Pettersson in his first 2 seasons in the NHL has the second highest shooting percentage when he's on the ice, and usually that's across the entire NHL. And usually when a guy has a percentage like that, you look at it and think, well, he's probably not going to sustain that. But when you see Pettersson shoot the puck, I certainly don't think I think there's a chance that he can. How do you think his ability to drive that sort of efficiency, whether it's as a shooter or as a playmaker, how do you sort of see that and utilize that as a coach, from your view? I butchered that.
That was a long-winded question. I'm trying to figure out.
When you think about let me frame it this way. Sorry, I butchered that. When you think about your career, how does Pettersson's shooting mechanics and overall lethal ability as a sniper compare to what you've seen in your career in hockey as a player and a coach?
Well, I think in a nutshell, he's a really good hockey player. And as a coach, you try to get the guys that are really good on the ice as much as you can. It's not don't try to reinvent the wheel. Man, he's good. He's a really good shooter. He makes plays. He sees the ice well, and he's still getting better. I don't think we've seen the best of him yet. As he matures and gets stronger and learns the league a little more, he's going to become a better player, and that's a good thing for us as an organization. And again, those kind of players, you want them to be on the ice as much as you can.
Is there anything you see that stands out in his shot mechanics for you? I kept that to a 1-sentence question.
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret he has he's got a really good one-timer. I think he thinks about his shot a lot. He's got some deception in it. I think he studies it, and I think it'll still improve.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to have a follow-up question from Brennan Batchelor.
Hey, Travis, I know it's not going to play into the immediate future with what you're getting ready for here for the play-in series, but your reaction to the organization signing Jack Rathbone and adding another good young defenseman to the fold.
Yeah, exciting. I got the opportunity to talk to him the other day, and you know, this is an exciting young player. He's got a lot of skills offensively. You know, I think with the way the game is going, you need players like that, and you know, he's competitive too. When I talked to him the other day, I mentioned the one thing I remember about him that had nothing to do with his shot or his skating was his first development camp, when I saw him have a little bit of pushback with another player on another team and a little bit of nastiness in him that you know, he wasn't intimidated. He was aggressive, and you know, you want players that are confident like that, and not just with the puck but away from the puck. And he's a hardworking kid that wants to be an NHLer for a long time, and he's got high character, and I'm happy that we signed him.
From what you know of him and his style of play, what do you think are some of the areas that he's going to have to round out in his game to make that jump to the NHL level in the next few years?
I think it's just getting better, growing up from league to league. There's always a part that you have to adapt to. The offensive stuff will probably come naturally, and the defensive stuff will be things that he'll have to pick up and catch on and learn. And that comes into, you know, part of it is on us to teach him, part of it is on him to understand that and realize that, and have an understanding of where he needs to get better at. And I think he does have that already, and it'll be good, you know, once you see him, you get a little bit better idea of where he's at in his weaknesses.
And there's some talk that you guys might be able to get him in here in the next few days. How valuable do you think the experience could be for him if you can get him out on the ice with the group here as your team is ramping up?
Yeah, I'm not sure how that's going to work or how that's going to look. I know that's a possibility, and if he does get in here and get to spend some time, it's only beneficial to him.
Thank you.
Okay.
And we're going to end off with one final question from Harmon Dale.
Hey, Travis. In Boston earlier in the year, you talked about how PD maybe wasn't getting the penalty calls he deserved. And, you know, now we're entering the play-in series, going to be a playoff-like atmosphere. And we all know how the whistles are often put away in the playoffs. Just from your perspective, how big of a learning experience do you think that will be for PD, just grappling with the fact that, you know, getting calls is going to be even more difficult, and teams will be able to potentially get away with a little bit more on him, and just trying to adjust and learn from that?
He'll be fine. I'm not worried about it at all. You know, I think we've talked about this for a while in this city about our young players playing these type of games. And that's all part of maturing as a group, as individuals. And he's going to be fine. I commented on it yesterday that anything that's been thrown at him, he's handled excellently. And I expect it not to be an issue at all.